What's up, guys? Welcome back to Project Time Garage. Got another episode on the little Datsun coming at you. I found a couple of upgrades that I want to go ahead and get done to it. So check this out. Pretty cool stuff. Now, before we get going too much here, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hey, take a minute and do so. Should have a subscribe button down here in one of these corners somewhere. I think it's here. Looks like my little logo. Click on that, subscribe to my channel. You wouldn't believe how much help it is to YouTubers to have people actually subscribe to the channel. In fact, you know, 0 out of 10 doctors say that subscribing to my channel might help warts clear up faster. You never know. So you definitely want to subscribe. I guess this project's not going to do itself, is it? Guess we better get to it. Well, I've been kind of questioning exactly what direction I want to go on this little truck. And I guess I've kind of been waiting for it to speak to me and just tell me maybe what it wants. Or maybe I've just been waiting to find some cool stuff to figure out which direction I do want to go. So I was out on eBay, perusing, unsupervised, and I ran across this. This is like a vintage Suntune Tach. It was an NOS thing. It had never been used. So I'm like, well, that'd be cool on the side of the steering column of this little truck. It would kind of give it that, I don't know, that rat roddy kind of feel. Oh, also, I found these. Told you I was unsupervised. Before we put this Tach in the truck, I want to test it and make sure that it works. Hate to do a whole bunch of work and then have this thing be defective. But before we test it, we're going to do a couple of things. Here on the back, the mount pedestal will just unscrew. And we have a couple of adjustments back here in the back. The one on the top is a selector switch, and we can select 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, or 8-cylinder. Since this is a 4-cylinder, I have 4 selected, so I just turned it over to point to number 4. Also, we have a 0 adjustment, and what that does is the needle, if it doesn't sit exactly at 0, then you can move this thing back and forth to do that. But I won't adjust that until I turn the thing on and get it powered up, because that's when the adjustment's going to matter, is when electricity is actually applied to it. Now, pretty much all tachometers work the same way. Most of them are just 4 wires, the basic tachometers. We have ground that goes to chassis ground. We have a red, which is switched 12 volts. So this needs to be hooked to something that gets 12 volts when the ignition turns on. We have a blue lead, which is our light or illumination lead. So when we turn the dash lights on, this thing needs to get 12 volts in order to turn the bulb on here for backlighting. Finally, what actually makes the Tach work is the green wire. And this green wire needs to go over and tap into the negative side of our coil. So let me get some test leads together and we'll test this thing out. The little test lead box I'm using today is one I've had for a while. This came off Amazon. It's been pretty handy. I'll stick a link down there to where I bought this in case any of you guys want something like this. So we have, I'm even going to color code because I'm just totally an overachiever. We have black, green, red, and blue. So the way these particular little leads work, one side's got an alligator clip on it so you can chomp it onto something. The other side is ready to accept various things like back probe needles or these little clamps. I'm going to use clamps in this case, so I can just stick those on there. I have a ready-made test lead. So let me go through and get all of these put together. I'm just going to put those same alligator leads on the end of all of these. There we go. So let's go over to the truck and we'll hook this thing up, see what we've got. All right, our Tach is here. I'll go ahead and connect the ground lead or the black lead on it to my black alligator clip. And I'll just run it over here on the battery and just hook that up. And then my positive, which is my red lead, I'll go over here and hook this up too. I want to kind of push these little insulators up because I don't want them to touch and arc. For now, I'm just going to leave this unhooked for a second. I'm going to take our green lead, and for me, this right here is the negative of the coil. So I'll just clip onto the negative here. And then we'll come over here. All right, we have our green hooked up to the negative side of the coil. We have our ground hooked up to the battery. And I'll go ahead now and give it some power. And let's start the truck, see what we've got. That's a success. Also, we put a blue lead together because we were going to test for lighting. But I'm really not even sure that makes that much difference because we can just take our blue lead here and just basically tap it against here. Oh, see? And we have lights. So the lighting works. All right. Feeling pretty good about this whole thing. Let's unhook the tach and let's go ahead and start by replacing the bulb in the tachometer. Because everything else is going to be LED, this may as well be too. On these, the light bulb lives back here. So I'm going to pull out this, I guess this is like a dust cover or something. And we can just twist the bulb and pull it out of its socket. Like so, one bulb. Now, I'm going back with LED bulbs in these, and these are pretty good quality LED bulbs from some super white LED or from super bright LED. This is actually a green bulb. Being an LED though, it only works one way. So I'm going to plug it into the socket. We're going to put it in. And we're going to go and hook up the lighting and see if we have illumination. If we don't, we'll just basically pop this thing out, put it in the other way, and then we will have illumination. So let's run over there and do that. Now the only wires I'm worried about here are going to be the ground wire and the blue wire, which is my illumination. So if I hit this blue wire, I have no lighting. So that tells me that I need to pull this bulb out and just basically rotate it 180 degrees. So I'm going to go from this way to this way. And we'll see what that does. Yeah, there you go. All right, awesome. Nice green glow. That's what we're after. So that's taken care of. Now when it comes to mounting options for these things, we have a couple. We can either drill a big old gaping hole in the dash and sit it up there, or we can use this, just a hose clamp. And basically what will happen is this will sit against the steering column, the hose clamp will go around it, and basically install it. And that's what I'm going to do because I don't want to drill holes in this truck. It's got enough holes now. I believe I want my tachometer to sit like something like this, maybe. Something like that. And to do that, we're going to take this hose clamp, and I've got to be careful with these wires. I don't want to get these wires in it. So let's get the hose clamp started, and we'll get it partially tightened up. Then we'll set our tack and we'll finish tightening it up. Yeah, something like that. There. That's pretty good right there. Just kind of tighten up the back of it some. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like that. Kind of cool. Now let's deal with the wiring. Well, here's what I'm thinking on wiring. This is the little junction block from the factory, the little fuse block. Boy, don't you wish today's fuse boxes looked that simple? Anyway, so I know this is switched right here. My little diagram here shows me that the last two here are switched. So I think I'll go back here on the fused side of this and just tap in there. I'd like to keep it as factory looking as I can. I don't want to mess with this wiring harness if I can help from it, especially just for something like, you know, a tack. And as far as the other connection over here, this is a little bulb here. This is a factory hood light, and this thing only works when the headlights are on. So I should be able to grab this wire right here, which is a positive, which is already on the correct side of the fuses, and I should be able to just make my connection here for the light circuit. All right, so I'll basically have two wires coming from over in that side over to this area. Then I'll have one wire coming up to this negative, and luckily under this lip right here there is already factory wire loom and spots to attach. And I will probably go ahead and ground here as well, so I can have both my wires come to the same general area. I plan to come through the firewall right down there. Probably can't see that very well, but let's see if that helps any. Anyway, we're going to come down right down there. So I'll likely come up and I'll split my my harness, 2 wires that way, 2 wires this way. Let me show you what I've done for the harness. I've kind of made myself a wire a harness already. So this is my black and my green, so this will come up to the coil, and those are already taped together with kind of making a loom. And also have another loom made with my red and my blue. All right, and both of those come up and kind of join together in the same loom to go inside. So this end will hook to the tachometer, and these two will split and go their separate ways under the hood like we just talked about. So let's put this, let's go ahead and feed this through and make the connections on the tack side under the dash, and then it's just as simple as coming out here and plug it in and we're good to go. All right, I went ahead and run the tack wire harness through this little factory wire retainer, and here are the connections. The cool thing is all of these connectors, they came with the tack. These are part of the NOS bundle, so I went ahead and used those. I'll just lay those up on top of the steering column and go pull a touch of my excess in from the inside, and I'll probably put a zip tie around the steering column just to retain them a little better. All right, with it somewhat untangled, I'm going to I'm just going to kind of be careful in how I run these. I want it to kind of appear somewhat stock. I don't want it to look like somebody's been here messing. So I'm going to go under this one. This is this is my green and black that's going to go around to the coil. So I'm going to move the factory harness and just kind of lay mine directly with it. And I'm going to try to use the same path that it uses. I'm going to try not to disrupt anything along the way. So we are pretty well ran. I'll go ahead and pull back my excess, trim it off, and we'll make connections here and probably right under here for my ground, right under where the coil is grounded. It'll be the heat shrink tubing. Probably way too much heat shrink tubing, but doesn't matter. We'll give these a crimp. Here's a fun fact. I went to a class many moons ago from a company called Staycon, and those were the people who made the really high quality versions of this. When you're using these pliers in order to crimp these things, you see how it makes this nice divot, or like kind of a ditch divot down the middle? Once you have that made, you're supposed to take the connector and turn it 90 degrees and squeeze it in this side. And what that does is that divot, it folds it all over and kind of locks it down into itself. So you see the difference between this, and I'll just put it in here and squeeze it 90 degrees. See what that does? It kind of forces it on down, and that starts to make that factory look going on there. So just a fun fact. All right, yay for that. And for this one, on these you can't really do it so well because they have this big plastic thing, it'll just walk around, so I ignore it on those. All right, what size is that? About an 8mm? Now those connections are made and they're not terribly visible, and I'm okay with that. Now for the other set of wires, this would be our plus 12 volt red wire and our illumination blue wire. I'm just going to go right over the top of these and just go right in the factory loom here. Okay, I didn't tape it far enough. I want to tape it all the way as far as I can go, because if you look at the factory wiring harness, it's all just black electrical tape as well. So I want this to kind of blend in and look the part. So it's kind of cool to tape like this because you can take your tape and you can pull it back at a really steep angle like this, and it kind of gives that factory looking appearance, and it also tapes really fast too. Let's see, where am I at here? Pretty close to right there. So I'm going to end it there. We'll go behind this little factory retainer as well. Our blue wire is going to drop off there, and our red wire is going to continue over to the switched side. Okay, you can see what I did here. I tapped right into that post there, which is 12 volt ignition. And then I tapped right here into this factory bullet connector, which goes down to the factory underhood light. All that's left to do now is test it. Neutral, and we're rolling. A couple quick pumps. What about lights? Yeah. Too cool. Skillfully installed. Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I think that's a whole lot for one episode. I try to keep these things where they're not so long that, you know, people just lose interest in them. And, you know, 30, 45 minutes seems to be about the max. Anyway, little truck's coming along. Got a lot more stuff to do to it. So, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell all your friends about us. And guys, I'll see you next time.